So, hi everybody. This is Anne Marie, Ball Girl Will Travel, and welcome to Conversations with Black Women and Coach. And today I am talking to Michelle Wedderburn Waters of Afroexpats. And I really like talking to Michelle and people like Michelle because Michelle does coaching in an area that a lot of times people don't know exists until they specifically decide they want to relocate abroad or they want to become expats. So I'm really happy to be able to introduce people to an area of coaching that is growing and that you need to know about, especially if you want to move abroad and especially if you want to move to Mexico. So welcome, Michelle. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for having me on. It's super exciting to be here and to be a part of your coaching group for Black women or Black women coaches. So I actually started Afroexpats more from an emotional standpoint, where I really wanted to show and showcase our life in Mexico from our lens. It was just to kind of, put pretty much our business out there, what we're doing in Mexico, why we really love the town that we live in, which is in San Miguel de Allende. And, it was one of the things where it started from really a place of passion. I really enjoy this country. And little by little, more and more people started asking me questions online and referring people to me. And I realized there was a need for us to really show this particular place to other people of color who are interested in living in Mexico, but maybe they don't know a lot about Mexico. So little by little, my business formulated and turned into, oh, okay, I'm going to start giving consultations because there are a lot of moving parts and pieces that are involved in getting here. And I realized that there's a lot of emotional attachments as well, where people have a lot of anxiety about how do I make this happen? How do I start? Where do I start? Here's my situation. And so I decided, you know what? I've done this. I did a lot of research for a few years. Before moving here, I was in and out of Mexico for a lot of years. And I really wanted to just kind of make that process smoother and have like a one stop kind of place to gather resources and information, as opposed to, you spending a lot of time digging around on the internet trying to figure out everything step by step. So that was really how it started.
Okay. And I feel like you answered my second question, which was how you got inspired to do this. But I think one of the key things for me, and just a disclosure, I also live in San Miguel, and I can honestly say I would not have even put it on my list of places to visit if I had not met Michelle in a Facebook group and heard her talk about it. And then we got on the phone and she convinced me to come. And then I came and I fell in love with the place. And I literally found an apartment the same week I came to visit. So it's a magical place. And I always tell people, when you come, you'll understand. And they usually do. And one of the great things about what Michelle does is I actually see it now because I walk down the street in San Miguel and I just see random Black people walking around, which, wasn't really the case when I came earlier in the year. And now I see a lot of us here, and it's really exciting. So Michelle has been doing a lot of work to introduce San Miguel to people of color specifically and Black people. And that's been really great. And when people come, they're always ask me do you know Michelle? And I'm like, of course I know Michelle. Because not everybody, so a lot of people think Mexico is just beaches. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people Mexico is a huge, vast country, beautiful country, different climates, cultures inside of the country, different kinds of people. They're Afro-Mexicans. There are other people that are Anglo-Mexicans. It's a very fascinating country. And if you just limit yourself to going to the beach or going to a resort, you're really not experiencing Mexico. And so when, I learned about this place, it was away from the beach. I wasn't sure about it, but I came here, and it's just a beautiful colonial, has a very European, but yet Mexican colonial feel to it.
Right.
And then the climate is just amazing. If you don't like to be in hot, sweltering heat, 300, more than, 300 days out of the year.
Exactly.
So it's a really beautiful place that a lot of people aren't aware, we are not aware of, because, exactly. San Miguel has been voted the most beautiful small town in the world at least 4 times by Travel and Leisure.
Exactly.
So clearly other people know, right?
Exactly.
And if you come here on the weekend, it's packed, other people know.
Right,
But
exactly.
we haven't known about it. So I
Mhm.
feel like what you are doing is super, super important for people
Mhm.
who are thinking about relocating
Right.
to Mexico, but have
Mhm.
no idea that there are other options besides
Absolutely.
living on the beach. Because not everyone
Absolutely.
wants to do that. And so
Exactly.
now, because you're providing services where you do all the legwork, you do all the homework, you help people get here, you help them find places
Right.
to live, you like literally do everything. So, can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit more specifically about how you feel the role of being a Black woman doing this work? How,
Mhm.
you know, how do you think that impacts what you do? As well as you can talk a little bit more about the services you provide, because I feel like
Mhm.
people don't even know that there are people that do this. Um,
Right. Okay.
and so, but I'm really interested in how you feel being a Black woman and doing this kind of coaching,
Mhm.
why it matters, and how it impacts what you do.
Well, I think for the first part or the upper layer of that is I feel that we are pioneering this whole expat thing right now. And I say we as women in general, and then we as Black women, because I don't find as many Black men that are expats in Mexico or other places or really out there, just kind of showing up basically. So I find it very interesting in general. And I also find it interesting from the perspective that we're just so brave, and again, yeah, maybe I'm putting a crown on our heads, but it's the truth. This is really in all of my interviews that I've done over the last few months. I just feel like this is what I'm discovering. So in saying that, I feel like I'm really happy to be a part of this movement because it is a movement right now. And I think that 2020 with COVID has really impacted how we do business online, and the opportunities that exist for us to, as people, as women, as humans, to shift out of maybe that more traditional setting and find something that you're passionate about. And this for me is something that ties into what I'm passionate about. I've always loved to travel. I've always found it interesting. I've been able and fortunate to be able to travel over the last couple decades of my life, mostly as an adult. And with all of that, I bring this experience to the table in a coaching kind of way where I'm realizing that not everyone has this viewpoint of just pack a suitcase or it's no big deal or get in, like let's go. But there are a lot of us still doing a lot of things, but now we're finding each other. And I really think that what I'm providing in terms of services is my experience, which is really, it's pretty thorough. And I'm not, again, I'm just saying it because I've been in and out of Mexico for almost 20 years. And Mexico has always been good to me. I've always had positive experiences. I've been able to travel about the country. I've seen lots of areas in Mexico. I've learned a lot about Mexico, and I also had a lot of my myths dispelled. I mean, my initial thing about Mexico City was it's dangerous and it's small and it's just not small, tiny, but it was just, like my mental capacity was like this. And when I went there, I was kind of like, oh, it's not that. And this was years ago. I started realizing just what you said. It's a huge country. It's not just the beaches. So in saying all of that, the services that I provide really are specific. It gives you a roadmap and a plan for your specific journey. It helps you kind of figure out, like, is this even for me? Just because I'm raving about San Miguel in Mexico doesn't mean it's for you either. I've had people contact me, book appointments, and they wanted to be on a whole other continent. And I literally was like, I'll give you your money back because this doesn't seem like it's for you. But if it is for you, then I sit down with each person and I ask, okay, what's your situation? And it's not just from a financial standpoint, but like, can you make this happen and work? And don't just do it on a whim. Sometimes people have frustrating things going on in their lives and they think, oh, okay, this is my way to just kind of get away. No, it's not really. You really have to unpack all of your stuff over there
Mhm.
and pack and bring yourself and things and emotions to Mexico. And you also have to come with a very open mind about this experience as well. So I really like to sit down and ask really in-depth, detailed questions, and then provide very specific resources that help that person's journey become more of a smoother process, and my clients are mostly Black clients, but I've had other clients reach out to me because they saw me on YouTube and they just were like, I feel like I'm a part of your tribe. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to be mad at that. But my point simply is that when people feel that they have confidence in what you're saying and what you're providing, they'll attach themselves to that. And they feel like, hey, you know what, this makes sense to me. This whole explanation or all the information that you've put out, it makes sense. It's clear. So in saying all of that, I just feel that, we are providing things that we feel really good about, but also I like to see people arrive and get here. I feel like once they get here, it's this whole like magical transformation. I saw it with you and you were already checking Mexico out. But I remember when we spoke, you said to me, I love Italy. I absolutely love Italy. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what? When she gets here, she's going to love San Miguel because it's very similar. But I wasn't trying to, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to push it on you. I was like, she has to experience it for herself. So once you were here, I was just like, okay, I'm going to show her a few places, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I enjoy doing. I've met a lot of folks that have visited, that were my clients that moved here. And it's just been really a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I wanted to make one more comment about seeing more and more Black people. Even a white friend of mine said this to me 2 days ago. She's like, she's lived here for 13 years. She's like, I never really saw any, Black people in San Miguel. And she goes, I want to have, the thought that it had a lot to do with your community and your page and what you're doing. And I said, yeah, it's a beautiful city. And I also want people to be able to look at this place and consider it as an option. You don't have to be here because it might not be for you, but open your mind to checking out other parts of Mexico because it's a big country and there's always a demographic or space, a geographical space that's good for you.
People are doing themselves a disservice if all they see when they come to Mexico is Cancun and Playa del Carmen and Tulum, right? Because that's not Mexico. It's Mexico. Right. It's not. It really does not reflect what Mexico is as a country.
Exactly.
Doing yourself a huge disservice if that's all that you see. Mm-hmm. And so Mexico has really major metropolitan cities with the shopping and the everything that you would have in the United States.
Yes.
And so you're not really experiencing the country if you just see the coastal areas. But one of the things you said that really resonates with me, because I say it to people all the time, is you're moving to another country, whether it's Mexico or somewhere else, it's not going to be like the United States. And I said that to someone yesterday. And I was like, if you want to stay in the United States and have every single thing just the way it is in the United States, I said, then stay there and have all your amenities with your side of white supremacy and white privilege.
Exactly.
Every day, and lunch and dinner too, if that's what you need. So you have to realize that you have to make adjustments. And the biggest adjustments you have to make are mental adjustments.
Yes.
And adjustments about yourself and how you feel about yourself and who you understand yourself to be as a human being first, and then as a Black human being in this world, because
absolutely
there's no way that you don't live in the United States and grow up in the United States and not be traumatized by what the experience is. And you don't even realize how traumatized you are until you leave.
Exactly.
And you have to also realize that a lot of those things and experiences and the armor that you put on to just survive there, you have to take it off when you leave. And and so I think there's work that, people have to do. And I always tell people, I don't do any of that. That's why I tell people to get a coach, therapy, work on that. But you need to have an awareness that you have to do work around to be happy anywhere. You have, wherever you go, there you are. And no matter where you go, you have to take yourself with you. And so you've got to be able to realize, I have been damaged by living in this country, and now you're living somewhere else. And every look thought, glance that you receive is not because you're Black, and it's not because someone doesn't like you because you're Black. And the first time someone asks you a question or tells you no is not because you're Black. But we carry that with us, right?
Yeah.
See people do it here, and I'm like, it has nothing to do with that, right?
Exactly.
If you haven't spent time to think about how am I going to make adjustments for myself so that I can be happy somewhere else, then no matter where you go, you're not going to be happy because you're going to carry those same traumas
exactly
with you into the next experience. And so I really love that you are like exposing people of color and specifically Black people to a part of Mexico that most of us would have never heard of. And then you get here and it's like Querétaro is right up the road and has like every, they got every store, and I do like to shop, and I'm like, they got there. So it's like you have access to anything that you want here. And a lot of people are really surprised.
Yeah, they are surprised. And I think they don't quite understand, because I think a lot of what we are accustomed to is a commercial lifestyle, right? And it feels sometimes like, oh, well, I don't know how I would survive over there. And of course, I would say even above that, is the safety aspect. I just want to touch on that for a second, because I think a lot of folks start really at that level. And then it comes down to, well, how do I earn a living? And then it's like, well, can I get the things I need? And, I feel like there are answers to all of those questions, and that people really need to understand that there are a lot more options out there for them to live in other places. And like you said, live well. My intention of moving to Mexico really had to do with, I didn't want to raise my son. I wanted us to slow down a little bit. And, I wanted our money to go a little further. And I just knew that this was a good option for that to happen. Getting here, there were a lot of questions, a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. Yes, there's the language. Yes, there's the where do I live? And yes, you have to take your time and kind of tackle each step as a lease. You and I spoke about it. I said, yeah, probably good to get an attorney, which you are, and you already knew this, but I advise that to other people. Sometimes if they're moving into an older house, I'll say, maybe you want to hire someone to do an inspection, make it, even if it's a rental, just to be sure you're not going to have any issues. So there are a lot of things that are involved in that, but kind of like circling back to moving and the whole process and then being here, I really wanted people to not just understand there are other parts and there's central Mexico and there's all these conveniences and all this other stuff, but that there are faces that look like us around Mexico. We're in small pockets, but we're growing. And that's the reason why I also started my lifestyle series on YouTube at Afroexpats. And it was really to showcase just this. People would ask me questions like, oh, what about the beach and this? And I'm like, you know what? There are pockets of us in Oaxaca. There are pockets of us in Mexico City. There are pockets of us in, lots of pockets of us in Merida. There are pockets of us in Puerto Vallarta. And it just keeps going on. And with the last year and a half to 2 years and all the issues with the US, people just started coming down to Mexico, setting up wherever. And I'm like, you know what? You need to know that there are choices for you. There's a beach, obviously, if you want. If you just, I'm not trying to trivialize anything, but if you don't know, there's a beach kind of almost going around the entire country. Yeah. So you have the beach option. You can do the popular beach. You can do the unknown beach. You can do a small town. You can do a ginormous city. I'm still learning. That's how much there is to see here. There's so much culture. There's so many interesting traditions. And if you open your mind to the experience and you really just say, you know what, I need something different in my life, this is a great option. So I always tell people, put Mexico on the list. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe IDTV.
Honestly, but let's talk a little bit about the safety question, because that's a question I get from people as well. Yeah. And, one of the things I said to someone the other day is organized crime has been a part of the fabric of the United States for the entire history. I know this because I'm an attorney and I also studied crime, and because I was fascinated by it ever since I was a kid, and my dad gave me a book about the FBI, but I digress. And no one has ever said, I'm not coming to New York because I'm worried about organized crime, or I'm not going to New Jersey because I'm worried about organized crime.
Right.
I'm not going to Miami because I'm worried about organized crime. And so I said to someone when they were like, well, I don't know if I want to, go to Playa because I'm worried about the cartel. And I said, well, you should be more worried about going to Walmart.
Yeah.
And,
And the movie theater, and to
and
church,
going to see
and to schools.
church
Yeah.
and whatever. So I'm like, if you can be comfortable going into a Home Depot in Texas, I think you'll be okay to
Yeah,
live in
exactly.
Mexico, because I honestly feel much more safer here than I have ever felt,
Mhm.
right, living in the United States. But I do not change my posture. Just
Right.
the way that I exercised, situational awareness, didn't
Mhm.
be walking around in the middle of the night by myself and doing
Right.
things. I do the same thing here. I don't just
Exactly.
get here and be like, okay, I'm just going to be out here,
Yeah.
I
On
still
these
exercise
streets.
the same level of, personal safety for myself as a single woman that I would anywhere but this United States, or when I go on trips, because I love to travel. But so for me, it's more about using common sense. Don't come down here and get loose like I see people do, and be
Yeah.
out here drunk and not knowing what's going on and
Mm.
doing foolishness, and then think when something bad happens to you that it's a terrible country. No, you were stupid, right?
Right. Exactly.
If you exercise the same kind of awareness you will be fine here. You know what I mean? But in the United States, you're much more subject to random acts of mass violence
Exactly.
than you are here. And that's just the reality of it. And so is Mexico perfect and has no problems? Absolutely not, because there's no such place. But I
Right.
tell you what, when I go to the mall, I don't feel stressed the way I did
No.
last time I went to a mall in the United. I stopped going to the mall in the United States.
Yeah.
I stopped doing a lot of things
Me
because
too.
it was just like, not only is it random, but it's very clear that the country has no intentions of ever doing anything about its gun
Nothing.
problems, right?
No, nothing.
Here, I don't
Nothing's changed. Nothing's
go to
changed.
the mall and
Mhm.
just go buck wild for no reason. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I don't have that concern. And so there's a certain level of stress, because I tell
Mhm.
people as soon as I go back into the United States, I get a tightness
Me
in
too.
my
Me
shoulders,
too. Me
right?
too.
And
In
so
the airport as
I feel
soon as we land.
stress when I'm here about my
Absolutely.
personal safety. So if
Mhm.
you exercise the same kind of personal safety awareness that you do in the United States in your everyday life, right?
Mhm.
And I have to remind myself sometimes, because I can walk home at 11
Right.
o'clock at night, and I've done
Mhm.
it, and nobody has even given me a second look,
A
right?
side eye.
But
No one says anything,
sometimes, like,
nothing.
if I go out and I have anything to drink or anything like that, I call a taxi.
Yeah.
Even though I probably would be okay, but I still am like, I'll call a taxi, I'll take a
Right.
taxi home. Just like I
Right.
call an Uber if I were in
Mhm.
the States, and take an Uber home if I didn't drive myself, right? So I think
Absolutely.
just exercising like common sense in terms of your personal safety, just as
Mhm.
anywhere else, is what you have to do here. So I think that the United States, and I don't believe anything is accidental, has built this whole mythology about what Mexico is. If you watch movies, and now when I watch movies, I just roll my eyes because I live here and I'm like, this is
Yes.
ridiculous. Everything is a little dive bar and dusty streets,
Yeah.
and then all this
Oh
random,
my gosh.
and it's not like that here. And
It's so not like that.
where there are problems, but there are much
Abs-
more places where there are not problems.
Yes.
You would think that, you're going to get off the plane, and it's going to be, the Wild West. And it's not like that. And
Mhm.
no, the streets are not
Mhm.
dusty. San Miguel is probably one of the cleanest cities I've been to anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
people here take pride in keeping the city
Yes.
pristine and beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's really like every time I go for a walk, I'm like, I can't believe I live here.
I
Like,
know.
I
And
live
there's so much to
myself.
see.
I was like,
There's
I can't,
so much to see.
I get to
Yeah.
live here. You know what I
Yeah, I do the same. I mean, at night sometimes, and I remember when the first year, I used to stare out the window and I could see the church from my bed, and fireworks, and I was just like, this is like a Disney movie.
mean? Yeah.
Not that everywhere in Mexico is this way, but the point is that the perceptions before moving here were just really off. Even though I had traveled a lot in Mexico, during my travels, it was like one more layer came off about these misconceptions. Another layer would come off. And then moving here, I was just the same. I'm still in awe. And I've been here for 3.5 years.
It's a
And I
beautiful
walk around and it's
place.
just a
The thing is,
beautiful
you know,
city. And there's
yeah.
so much to do. It's to me, okay, again, not knocking the beach, but the beach is a gorgeous spot too. It's beautiful water to look at. I know some people just want the ocean, but I really feel like there's so much stuff to do
Mhm.
in this, what, 50-mile or 25-mile radius. There are
Always something
hot
happening.
springs,
Yeah.
right? We went to an art exhibit the other night. On the weekend, there was, well, Monday and Tuesday, Day of the Dead. There's art galleries. The restaurants are amazing. The hotels are interesting to look at. There's a Fabrica Aurora. There are like beaches in the mountain. There's vineyards. Like it's just like literally when I stop, sometimes I have to say to myself, oh, I could go hot air balloon riding. I
Mhm.
could go on a horseback sunset. I could go horseback bar hopping if I want to. There's just a lot to do here. It's very rich in culture, rich in experiences. And that's the part for me that was a huge attraction. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the people are just amazing in Mexico
Okay,
in
the local
general.
people here are so
Yeah,
wonderful and
they
so
really are.
friendly and welcoming.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing in my choice in terms of how I felt when I was here. And
Mhm.
it's even like gotten bigger in terms of my experience since I've actually lived here, how kind everybody is, how
Yeah.
helpful people are, how excited they are that I live here. When I say I live here, and they're like, oh my goodness, you live here.
Yeah.
And they're genuinely happy about it, right?
Mhm.
About the local
Yeah.
people, I can't talk about anybody else. And um, because I try to interact with local people. I live in a neighborhood that's filled with Mexican people, and it's part of what I love about my neighborhood. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I would say, and I have a question about, is what are the things that you like tell your clients to consider doing? Because one of the things I hadn't really thought about till I got here is how important it was to learn the language. And you were much
Mhm.
more, good at Spanish than I am.
Mhm.
But I think that that's one of the things that people should think about. It's not just for San Miguel, because I mean, honestly, you could get away with not speaking any Spanish here. But I feel
Yeah.
like, why should I be in a country where that's the language and I don't bother
Right.
to learn?
Try. Right.
But what are the things that you like kind of tell your clients that they should be thinking about and prepared to do when they are relocating here?
In regard to the language,
Not just language, but language being part of it in terms of having a good settling in experience.
mhm.
What
Well, I'll
tell them?
start on the top layer. I really feel that, having already a pre-community is helpful. Like if you can already tap into knowing a person. Not you don't have to have that, but you know what I'm saying? It makes it feel like, okay, because when you get it just makes it feel more comfortable. Because when you arrive, there are always a lot of things you don't think of, or, how do I get here? What do I do? How do I pay this bill? What's this paper? Whatever, especially if you don't speak Spanish. So I'm going to start with the language. I really think that should not stop you from moving to a place, should not stop you from moving to Mexico. I do think you have to really consider how you are as a person. Like, am I adventurous? And if you are, you can go somewhere where maybe no one speaks English or not a lot of people speak English and you don't speak a lot of Spanish and you just want to integrate and you have that personality type and you're not going to be bothered and irritated. There's just some people who can integrate and they'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Now, if you're not that person, you want to probably pick living in an area or a city that, yes, there are a lot of tourists or a higher expat population because it's already been set up for you. Yes, we're Blacks moving to Mexico now over the last, couple of years where it's like more and more of us, but I'm sorry, white folks have already pioneered this journey. So if you just want to like ride on that coattail, go
Mhm.
to a city where it's already been set up for you. And San Miguel is one of those cities. I mean, there are plenty of them, but this is where I live. A part of the reason why I chose to come here was because I knew that I wasn't coming alone. If I had, picked a spot where maybe I was going to go somewhere alone, I might have picked somewhere else. I don't really know. I like the city, or I love the city actually. But when I chose it, it was that it felt like a very soft landing. And it was important that my husband and my son could integrate without it being stressful to me. So again, you got to reflect on what's my situation. You know,
Right.
am I going alone? What's my personality type? Do I have a family? If you go with a family and none of you speak Spanish, you know, you as the person who chose to move there, probably, because it usually starts with one person in the relationship, you might want to think about how stressful it could be for you, because that's what I did. I was like reflecting on, well, how much do I have to translate? How much do I have to figure out by myself? How much will I have to guide the ship alone, and how stressful will that be to me? And that's why San Miguel felt like a better fit, because my husband's super social, and so is my son. So I knew they needed to be able to be social, right? So these are like things to think about from a personality characteristics of your whatever's going on in your household. So once you know, make this decision and you arrive, I think it's important to make sure the roof over your head is secure. And when I say that, I don't mean just finding a place to live in, but that you one feel safe in that space. You know, San Miguel doesn't like, I'm going to speak about San Miguel, doesn't have crazy major crime, but I know that if I chose to live in a standalone home in Los Frailes, or a neighborhood where there's, you know, individually owned homes and not in the development, which is where I live in the development, there are different things I'm going to look for. You know, I'm going to make sure it feels secure, it looks secure. So don't just walk in and say, oh, this house is so pretty, you know, because our number one crime, I think, is petty theft and burglaries, right? And a lot of times people break in because they're desperate. You know, there's hardly any other thing attached to that. I really haven't heard of any like violent crime that resulted in someone's house being broken into. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just saying that's not the norm here.
It's not the norm.
Right. So I tell my clients, you know, like one of my recent clients, she was looking at a house in town and one in Los Frailes. And I said, you know, and she already was aware of this, but I was just like, okay, make sure you're secure. Make sure your walls are high, get a camera system. You ended up getting an alarm. It's just a sense of security that maybe sometimes you feel you need it, and it's okay. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and it's kind of worth it if it makes you feel more secure.
I had a very, intricate security system at my home in DC. And I lived there for a while I slept one night in that house before the security was put in, right? When I bought my house in Washington, DC. And so I was here and I felt fine, but then I was like, I'm still here by myself.
Right.
And so I would feel better.
Exactly. And I did the same. I mean, I live in a development. It's very secure. There's 24/7 security. They have cameras, they walk around and, but when I moved here, I was probably bringing some of my anxiety about Mexico, some of my anxiety about what I've heard or what I think is whatever. And I remember when I got here thinking like, I want to get a camera system that links to my phone so that if someone's at my home, we have a housekeeper, that I can have something that makes me feel whatever. I didn't need it, but I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. So I feel like you just, there are lots of layers and steps. And I always tell my clients, look, here's my advice and here are my experiences. But at the same time, you also have to be able to make some decisions that really make you feel like this isn't okay.
Comfortable. And so you have to do the thing that is going to make you feel comfortable based on what your situation is, right?
Absolutely.
And one thing I would caution people is it's good to join groups on Facebook because you can get a lot of information, but you have to take some of that stuff with a grain of salt.
A lot of salt.
A lot of hysteria in those groups. There's a lot of misinformation in those groups.
Yes.
A lot of, just to be blunt, bullshit in those groups. And so you have to be able to kind of like go through some of it and determine what makes sense.
Yes.
Because again, it's everyone's individual, and a lot of it is not even the individual experience. I heard that such and such heard that so and so. There's a lot of that in those groups, and so you have to really just think, what do I need to be comfortable?
Right.
So for me, I was like, I'm not going to come down here and act like it's nirvana, and I don't need nothing. When I know when I'm in DC, I did all these different things for the same reason, right? because I was going to be living by myself. So I got a dog,
Yeah.
alarm system. I did these things. So it's like
Yeah.
just common sense and what's going to allow you to be comfortable and sleep at night, because nothing is
Exactly.
foolproof if someone
No.
wants to get into your house, right? But just doing things
Exactly.
that are basically going to make you feel comfortable, but just get educating yourself and getting information and working with someone that can like tell you things. Because I think you're right that moving here and having someone that I could ask questions
Right.
and meeting
Right.
other people when I came here that were helpful, that I could ask questions about doing things, made me
Right.
feel a lot more comfortable in terms of
Right.
picking here versus another place, as well as knowing that I
Absolutely.
didn't have to be fluent in Spanish, that I
Yeah.
could like get things done, which I was able to
Mhm.
do. I mean, I found a local moving company that was
Yeah.
fantastic. I was able to do all of these things myself,
Right.
right? And
Right.
when I got here, I was able to like figure out most things myself because most of the people that I had to communicate with were bilingual.
Yeah.
And you're not going
And
to necessarily find that everywhere that
in a lot of places in
that,
Mexico.
but it really depends on
Yeah.
your comfort level. And I mean,
Right.
like my housekeeper speaks no English really. So
Yeah.
it's been very helpful because I have to like learn words and things to
Right.
communicate with her. And it's really
Right.
making like I really want to be able to speak Spanish better because I don't want
Exactly.
to just be able to talk to her. I want to be like have a conversation with the taxi driver, have a
Yeah.
conversation with people that don't speak any English.
English at all. Right.
And so I
And
think,
that's,
people should take that into consideration that
yeah.
you might not need it depending on where you live, but your experience will be broadened if
Yes.
you bother to learn and don't live
Yes.
in an expat bubble where the only people you interact with and the only people you talk to are people who speak English. Because then
Or are from your country or you're part of the world, I mean, that's,
I think it's really
yeah.
important for people to consider that. Um, can you tell me like what your ideal client is like? Who should hire you to coach them and support their relocation to San Miguel?
Well, I honestly think it's for everyone. I feel that I've been able to develop my whole kind of like perspective over the last year and a half, just from having all the, different conversations with different people. And I start realizing like everyone's journey is really a little bit different. I mean, you do need the foundational things, but people really have very interesting like perspectives, and they're like, oh, I never heard of this place, or some will just come and get up and go. So I really feel that my ideal client is someone who's either planning in the planning stages. They're trying to figure out, is San Miguel for me? I've spoken to folks who were just making a relocation research trip, like, is this even going to be a good match? I mean, the couple that we met this week, they're kind of in this position right now where it's like, oh, I heard about you, or I saw your TV show. And now, we ended up in San Miguel, and, we met, and they're kind of more like open to this experience. And then there are others who heard about it from someone else or saw something, and they just need direction. They don't know where to start. So in general, I feel that no matter at what stage you are in making a move to Mexico, or specifically making a move to San Miguel, is you sit down, you spend that money, because it's really not, it's worth it. It's an investment that saves you so much time. And I'm telling you this because if I had had access to someone like myself, I would have saved myself a lot of money. I literally lost plane tickets because I didn't know stuff. I was just like supposed to fly on whatever day, supposed to return on whatever day. I lost like 2 whole flights for me and my son because there was information I didn't know. And my cost is a fraction of that. And this was a few years ago. So I sit down with each client that is interested in Mexico. I give them really clear information. I like to ask, well, if they already have a place in mind, then I like to find out more about that area. If they're really focused on being in San Miguel, I know a ton about San Miguel, but it's like, where do you start with the process? Are you driving in? Are you flying in? Should I ship stuff? Should I not ship things? Should I how do I bring my pets into the country? What are my
Yeah,
options?
yeah, that's a whole other thing. And you have
Yeah,
so you know all about like what
right,
someone does if they have a child and they need to get them in
right.
school and what's the best
Yes,
options for education. and all of those
Exactly.
kinds of things that you're not necessarily, but what your ideal person kind of knows they want to move and just
Right.
help with where and how and
Right. Or
details,
where to
and
start,
know
where to
where that
start.
they want to move. Because I just, there, I talk about this a lot in the group that we're in about there are lots of different kinds of coaching. And for some,
Mhm.
types of coaching, you really don't need a person that has a lot of experience in a specific area. But for certain things like this, you
Mhm.
need someone who has done this
Yeah,
and not talking in
exactly.
theoretics, that they've actually done it.
Right.
They
And
know and they have
right.
connections and they have relationships. Because that's one of the things I love
Absolutely.
about working with you was that I don't think I ever asked you a question and you didn't know the answer. That would happen. And so ever, right? Because
Listen, girl, I have a 10-page document in Google that has resources for days. And every time I have a conversation, I think sometimes when I meet with my clients, it feels like kind of like this, but I'm literally making notes. I'm like, oh, they need that. They need this. They need this. They need this. And when I send them the recap email, because I do that, it's not just you talking, you got to write it all down. I make like detailed notes. And when I send them the recap email within a day or two, everyone is blown away because it's so specific for you. It's like, okay, they said this. Oh, you want to know about medical insurance? Here are the people I recommend. Here are the ones that I have experience. Oh, you want to learn about how to buy a car? This is, and that kind of happens later. But on the top layer, people ask those
you have
questions.
all of the details, and
Yeah,
it's important because there are things. No matter how organized, and I'm a pretty organized person, but no matter how organized you are, you're going to miss things because you just wouldn't have thought about it. You're going to think
absolutely.
it's important to you, but then you get somewhere and realize that there are all these other things that you
Mhm.
have questions about.
Absolutely.
No, and I mean, and I came here and spent a week and went places and got to see things, but then you're
Mhm.
still going to have questions because a week is not enough. It's
Yes,
in terms of figuring out what a place feels like in terms of whether you want to live somewhere or not.
absolutely.
Then
Absolutely.
the actual day-to-day thing, it's always going to be things that you realize, oh, I need to do this thing now and I don't know, right? And so having
Exactly.
someone like knows all of those things and can get you information and answer questions really quickly for how to do it is
Absolutely.
useful, because going into these groups you end up like having to wade through a whole lot of misinformation. I've
And attitudes.
attitudes and all of these kinds of things. So you are always up to something. Every time I talk to you, I tell you do entirely too much because I know my objective is to do, as Stephanie Perry, who I love, says, as
As little as possible. Oh my
little
God,
as
yes.
possible. So tell us a little
Uh,
bit about like what you're up to right now and any upcoming like projects.
okay,
I will be posting all of your like contact information in the details for this conversation, so people will be able to find you on YouTube, find your
awesome.
all of that. But what are you
Okay,
up to? Because I keep seeing new things, Michelle, and
I
I'm
know.
doing that.
Okay, well, I wanted to just drop this in since we were talking about like, hiring and whatever. I also wanted to say that I'm developing some more like services and packages for my offers as I talk to people like the gentleman we met, the couple we met. He was kind of giving me some recommendations about some travel like information for people who only want to come for a week or whatever, because I'm more focused on people who really are ready to make the move to San Miguel in general, or really want to move to Mexico and they just need to feel like, all right, this person knows what they're talking about. But in saying all of that, I do have also, when you get to Mexico or you get to San Miguel, a different package that is really customized to whatever your needs are. And it's like a 3 or 4 hour for a 1 month span of time. So you can use it however you want. And, I will help you in any capacity figure out whatever, whether it's, okay, we're going to find a realtor, we're going to go and look at places or whatever the case might be. But it's like, it's broken up into different timeframes. The initial is the pre-moving, and then once you get here. So I just wanted to put that out there because I've had several people who needed that. That we're like, okay, we need help when we get there, but we don't know what yet, and we just want to be able to have access to you so you can
To your
see that,
yeah.
right? But as far as what I'm up to, so that I think this, that I'm doing a relocation tour with Faye Tillery in January. So if you're interested in San Miguel, it's happening on January 28th, 2022. And it really will be, it's a 13-day trip. And on those 13 days, there's a very clear itinerary. The first day is going to be like a welcome dinner or evening. And then the next day, we really just jump right into what is San Miguel all about? How do you get here? There's going to be a day with an immigration specialist. There's going to be a day with a realtor. There are going to be other days where you can ask questions of other expats. And then we're also going to do some excursions, like a really amazing vineyard tour, which, you know, we love that spot. Tres Reyes. I mean, there are tons of vineyards here, you guys, but I am like addicted to Tres Reyes. And a trolley tour, and just, you know, like a neighborhood tour, so people can see what does San Miguel look like from the outside, and a few house, you know, going inside homes and things like this. So if you are interested in San Miguel, then that's one of the things that, you know, will be coming up. And Faye Tillery is a part of the Black Sit Tribal. Okay. And you can find that on Facebook. And that's, again, January 28th. And within that 13-day time frame, there's an upsell if someone's interested in seeing the beach. Mm-hmm. Our closest beach is Zihuatanejo, which is about 4 or 5 hours away. So we do have like a weekend trip the following weekend. Yeah, or they can stay here and do some other things. So we'll, you know, this is my kind of my first thing doing it with someone else as a co-host, you know, and I really hope that we get our minimum, which is, you know, going to make us really happy. And I just want to do it. You know, I really feel excited.
I recommend that anyone that's interested in coming to Mexico at all should contact you. And anyone that wants to come to San Miguel, I just don't see how you come here and not talk to Michelle. So I would highly recommend that you contact her if you're interested in visiting San Miguel. It'll really enrich your experience here. And you'll really get to get here and hit the ground running with things to do rather than getting here and then trying to figure out, because there's so much overwhelming. Yes. So having someone that can like recommend things that you can do if you're coming for a week, 10 days to like do a research trip and trying to figure out how to get a good sense of what the city is about and what it has to offer, then I would really recommend that you contact Michelle, set up a consultation with her, and purchase some of her time, because I'm about people paying for things to my audience. You're expecting Black women to be just giving you stuff for free. That is over.
We get that a lot.
Their time and their expertise, just like you pay everyone else.
Yes.
Pay your people the same way. So
we work hard.
Yes, their water is not wetter. So if you pay each other and pay yourselves, it's like Michelle has heard me say this many times because it's a pet peeve of mine. So I'm like, you pay for things and then you get the best experience and the best value for what you paid for. Don't expect it, you know, if you just want to go to Google University, then do that. But don't think that people should spend their time and experience and expertise and give it to you for free. So sign up with Michelle, do a consultation with her. And that way you will come here and have the most excellent experience. Because I mean, I just bring my friends and introduce them to Michelle and they're like, oh my God. Aww. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Like when my friend Jeff came and he was like, oh my God. And I was like, don't thank me. Just ask Michelle what to do.
Well, I think I was going to say something about I do have an ebook and it's 30 pages. And it has links to everything I recommend. So you don't even have to see the name and then go, you just link to it. It's on your phone. I have breakfast, lunch, dinner recommendation, day trips away from San Miguel, how to emergency hospital, how to get a COVID test to get this, like full of info. And when the couple we met the other day, he was saying, you know, I'm really loving it here, but I haven't had a good meal. And I was like, I made this face. I was like, what? And I said, well, where have you eaten? And he was listing all the places that I just am like, no, and no. So we ended up going to one of our favorite spots and they finally had a good meal after being here for 3 or 4 days, right? So they wasted a lot of money. And it's like, he even I saw your ebook. I was going to buy it, but I didn't because I thought it was more for people that were moving. I said, no, it says San Miguel de Allende City Guide. Like City Guide is for everyone. So he kind of gave me the pointers about like how I could, you know, make it like more of a travel thing. I said, okay, no problem. But what I wanted to say really quickly, you know, in closing, is I'm also working on creating a virtual summit, a Move to Mexico virtual summit, which will be happening as well in January 2022. So look out for that. We're hoping to launch. What?
Find the time, honestly. I'm
I
like,
gotta find the time.
yeah.
I'm a one-woman show over here.
I'm just listening to all of this because I'm lazy as hell. I tell you that all the time. But
no, you're not. You're fire. You just like to relax, and that's okay too.
I like to not do anything. So
but I would like to not do anything too. Just go out and have wine at the vineyard and hang out over there.
Yeah, I like doing things like that. And because you saw me at the vineyard, all of y'all were up there taking pictures and stuff. And I was sitting there with a glass of wine.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Working. Are y'all working?
Oh, that was so much fun. Oh my God. I was like, I got to come out here and do this more often. It's 25 minutes away. We stayed overnight. We had dinner. This beautiful casita. It was kind of cold the next morning. I was trying to light that little fire pit bowl thing they had. It wouldn't come on. And I'm just like, come on now. I lit my little incense, watch the sun come up.
It's amazing. Property. So those are all, I was surprised. I'm always surprised if anyone says they didn't have a good meal in San Miguel, because one of my favorite things about living here is that I get to eat good every day. And I really have had to put myself on a disciplined cook at home plan, because I eating so much when I just got here, because there's so many different options of good choices. But again, there are lots and lots of options. So if you come and you don't know, you can end up not experiencing the restaurant scene here, which is really, because that's one of the things my friend was like, he was like, he really didn't have a bad meal the entire time he was here. But I was like, well, you could thank Michelle for that, because I didn't pick none of these restaurants. And he person. Because he lives in Mexico City, has the best.
Yeah, no, I know.
So
I know.
Make sure he has a good eating experience here, so he doesn't talk about San Miguel after he left. And he was like, this was really, really great, and he really loved it. And he was like, I want to come back again to visit next year. So I think that if people come and they are connected to you and they spend time talking to you before they come, I think even, Michelle, travel planning, even if you're coming on vacation or whatever, I think it's worth it to research.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm doing that right now for a couple different ladies that are planning to come next year for their birthday. And I said, here's what I can do for you. And I'll put it together. You don't have to worry about not knowing the language. If you want to have a dinner somewhere, you want to go hot air balloon ride or horseback riding, I'll create a itinerary. I'm not going to come with you, but I'll set it all up. And, you don't really have to stress out about it and be like, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there, do a lot of research. Some people like to do their own research. I am that person who likes to do my own trip research, but a lot of people feel overwhelmed by that. So I'm in this capacity if people are interested. And as we were talking about the meal thing, I just wanted to reiterate what happens with having the bad meal sometimes is there's a place that's been around for a long time. Tourists just find it. They talk about it. It ends up at the top of the top 10 places to have breakfast in San Miguel when they're actually, or lunch or dinner, they're actually just been around for a while and they don't have to be that good. And they're not.
So again, having someone that lives here and also having a Black person that lives here if you're Black, because what we think is good is not what everybody else thinks is good, because there's one place, and I'm not going to put them on blast, but you know where I'm talking about with the fried chicken. And I went there and I was
girl.
No, this is not it. While other people were raving about how good it was, right?
Yeah.
But when I asked you, you were like, And so it's one of those things, it's like, you want to ask someone, right? Who knows? If I weren't so lazy, I was like, I would go open up a fried chicken place just because after that experience, right? So I was like, you have to ask someone who's going to be able to say, no, that's probably not going to be the best place to go, but you can go get this thing.
Absolutely.
That's what you do, right? So Michelle, it's been a pleasure. I knew this would be
likewise.
Fun.
Yes.
Thanks for
my friend.
Time to have this conversation. And again, I will put all of the information for people to reach out to you. But I always tell people, do not call me if you won't come to San Miguel. I do that. I just
call Michelle.
I live here, right? Now, if you want help figuring out if your bad job could be the source of the funds for you to move to Mexico, indeed call me.
Exactly.
Contact me to talk about how to move to Mexico, San Miguel, because that's just not what I do. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell you to go to Michelle anyway.
That's right. Afroexpats.com. And then you can go to Afroexpats on YouTube as well to see what's life in Mexico and up for other Blacks and for me and San Miguel.
Michelle, because every time you see me doing something fun in San Miguel, it was probably organized. So don't call me and ask me in my face. I can't remember. You contact Michelle. If you know, like, what was the food that you saw in the picture, contact Michelle. I don't do that. I don't mean any harm, but like I said, I'm very focused on what it is that I do, and I don't do that. I mean, I will share my adventures with you, but if you want to talk about how to do, like how to move here and how to do what I did, I highly recommend that you just book her some time with her and speak to her about your hopes and dreams for moving to Mexico and moving to San Miguel, because that's what I'm going to tell you to do anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate you, girl.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
And see you guys soon on the next conversation with Black Women Who Coach.